All right, joining us now, as he will all football season long, the great Mike Mayock. You can hear him on the Believe in Eagles podcast with Lee Mayock. Mike, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. How you guys doing?
What's up, Mike?
We're good, man. It's always better to do the show a 1-0 week of show week rather than an 0-1 show week. So we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, and there was at times I'm not sure 1-0 was looking real good.
Yeah, I mean, the first half of that, why don't we start with the offense? Because the first half of that game, it just really felt like, oh no, we're not going to be able to stop them at all, and I don't know if we can score enough. So why don't we start with the offense? They scored on a good percentage of their drives, and Jalen, at least in the first half, looked good, but you look at the game in the end, and there's things to pick apart. So what did you see offensively from the Eagles?
All right, I'm just going to literally give you my I spent 5 hours watching this tape. I was really captivated by this tape, and I'm going to give you my offensive notes at the very end, a synopsis of the game. Point number one, Jalen Hurts won this game with his legs. He scrambled all day long. I was not only did he scramble out of necessity, but he also scored 2 touchdowns. They win the game because of their quarterback. Point number two, if you're going to run 12 and 13 personnel, which is multiple tight ends, all of them need to block better. Point number three, offensive line, not what we're used to. I thought Dickerson struggled. I think he was probably still hurt. He looked kind of stiff and slow. Surprisingly, both tackles had some bad pass reps. I thought Osa Odigizua, number 97 from Dallas, was a factor in the game, and the offensive line just didn't play at as high a level as they typically do. And if I had to grade the offense, I would give Jalen Hurts an A+ and the rest of the team a C+.
Wow, an A+ for Jalen. So let me ask you this.
Not where I had him at.
Yeah, let me ask you this about the performance. And you mentioned the scrambling, and it was one of the better scrambling games I've ever seen him have. And he was decisive, at least in the first half of the game. Is when he didn't see what he wanted, he would take off running. I guess my question is why did he need to do that? And is that something that you think moving forward is sustainable for them to rely on his scrambling and his running that much?
No, I don't think it's sustainable. And I do think that, number one, we got to give a little credit to a team that is better than I thought they were with Dallas. I thought they came in with a good plan. I thought they took away the run game really well. I mean, in all honesty, Saquon Barkley, if he doesn't stand on his head a couple times, he doesn't even have the numbers that he ended up with. He made some guys miss. And I guess what I'm trying to say is they've got to block better. And I think you probably got the feeling of that, both from what I said about the tight ends and about the offensive line.
Yeah.
I'm talking about pass protection and run game.
Yeah. Yeah, even Kevin Patullo had mentioned that in his press conference this week, that the blocking certainly needed to be better in that game Monday night. I was going to ask you about what Dallas did to this offense, Mike, to sort of bottle them up. Like the running game has been bottled up 2 straight games if you throw the Super Bowl in there as well. Is there anything you're seeing that, like defenses, this is a copycat league, so they're going to probably see some semblance of what Dallas did or some variation of it. Anything particular they did that sort of gave the Eagles problems?
Well, they were in some 8-man looks, and I know Kevin Patullo talked about that a little bit also, but if you're going to be a run team, you're going to see some looks you don't love running against. I think from a personnel perspective, I kind of look at it and go, okay, they lost Becton. You're working Steen in, and Dickerson wasn't very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So this is week 1 of a transition, and I think it's going to get better. And I think it'll start to get better this week because their coach is really good, and they'll start to get a feel for what they do well and how they do it against certain looks. So I'm nowhere near panicked. Okay, and I'm happy they got the W. I'm just saying there's some turnover in that O-line, and I thought the left guard didn't look like the left guard usually does.
One more thing on the offense before we move to the defense, Mike. There has been, and I think fairly so, a lot of talk about A.J. Brown's one target, and it's not like Devontae Smith went off either. 3 catches for 16 yards. What can they do if teams are going to keep throwing the same sort of zone at them every single week? What can they do to make sure they're utilizing those guys to they're spending a lot of money on those guys. So what can they do to make sure that they are getting the most they can out of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith?
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I thought that Dallas did a nice job on play action also, even though they were coming aggressively downhill, crossing routes, typical things you see off flood routes, sail routes that you see off play action. They really covered well. So give Dallas some credit. It'll be interesting this week when you look at Kansas City from a matchup perspective, because Kansas City shut down the run last week and really struggled, A, putting any pressure on Justin Herbert, and B, covering wideouts. Okay? So the way I look at this game coming up is it'll be a really nice test for the Eagles to hold up pass protection wide and give them an opportunity to throw the ball, get them on their heels a little bit, and then maybe, I'd love to see if they're gonna throw the ball early and try to get the lead and come back in that second half and run Saquon. But again, I'm not panicked at all. I just think every year between weeks 1 and 2, you see the most adjustments made.
Mike Mayock with us right now. All right, now you mentioned at the top of this, it didn't look like we might win the game, and I think a lot of that has to do with the Eagles' struggles defensively. What did you see that didn't work, and then from there, do you see solutions to the things that didn't work?
Well, I mean, you start with too many penalties, and they got called for 9 accepted penalties. 7 of them were on the defense. And in the first half alone, you had the dumbass Jalen Carter thing before the first snap. You had 3 defensive pass interference calls. You had a taunting. You had an unnecessary roughness. And that was all in the first half. Mm-hmm. Okay? And if you look at it by series, I think if I remember correctly, Dallas went touchdown, field goal, then halftime.
Halftime, yep.
And then in the second half, it was lost fumble, punt, downs. Okay, so they didn't score in the second half. So things got a little bit better. I think Vic is the kind of guy that knows how to fix some things at halftime. But that was just point number 1, the penalty thing. Point number 2 is I'm not sure if the answer at corner is on the roster right now. Adoree Jackson got the first shot. They had 5 catches at 14-plus yards and a DPI. And to be honest, a lot of those catches were way too easy for an NFL game. Thought he played a little bit better, a little more comfortable in the second half, but I'm not sure what they're going to do out there. Number 3, if CeeDee Lamb catches 3 passes he normally catches, I'm not sure that's a win. Number 4, who do I like off the tape? Zach Vaughn just continues to blow me away. The hustle play on the run, catching the running back from behind, set up the forced fumble that changed the game. Mm-hmm. Ojomo and Jordan Davis both had to play plus or minus 90% of the snaps because of Jalen Carter getting thrown out. And there's Jihad Campbell, dude. He's got a long way to go before he's going to be a polished off-the-ball linebacker. But you want to talk about big play potential. He's the guy that had the forced fumble after the Zach Vaughn hustle play.
Yep.
And there was a 30-yard seam pass down the middle.
Yeah.
Yep.
That hit the back of his friggin' helmet. And I watched him run from the far side of the field to get underneath that. And that's rare for any linebacker, let alone a rookie, to get there. So I got a kick out of that. And I think Nolan Smith is developing into a quality edge guy, both run and pass. So they were kind of my positive takeaways on defense.
Yeah, you mentioned the cornerback too not being on the roster. Do you think they have now? They just add Zadarius Smith from an edge perspective. Do you think they have everything they need on the roster there?
At edge?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because I only had time to literally watch 10 snaps of Zadarius Smith last year, which was his sacks. He had 8 sacks, whatever. But there were 10 plays, and what was interesting to me was the way he was used. Remember, it was Cleveland. He played for 2 teams, Cleveland and Detroit.
Yep.
A couple of the sacks in the Cleveland tape were inside, and he did a nice job inside working on guards. He did a nice job working a twist back to the outside. He's a little bit like a Brandon Graham, and Brandon Graham was thicker. But this kid is still thick. He's a big body defensive end with some explosion to him. He just turned 33, I think, this week. I don't know what kind of shape he's in, but I'm hoping they can get from him kind of what they got from Brandon when they needed it, which was just some physicality and spark. I also thought Josh Uche made a couple moves on up and unders that were surprising and got some pressure on the quarterback. I already mentioned Nolan Smith. Jalix Hunt is a project continuing, and I like Jalix Hunt, but I love the fact that Howie just is never satisfied. And even though it's week one, they hadn't even gotten the 48 hours after the game, and they signed Sedarius Smith. I mean, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I was just about to ask you, Mike, about Howie's mindset and approach right now to, I guess, continuing adding pieces to this team to try to get this team where he wants it to be. Your former GM, at this time of the year, right, once the season has started, where do you go to get sort of players that is an upgrade? It's hard to find them on the street, right? Is it you got to try to make a trade? Like, how does that work when you're a GM that when the season is started and you're still trying to improve your roster?
Well, we obviously all have a ready list, which basically are guys on the street like Sedarius Smith was.
Yep.
And there are typically veterans out there that say, hey, I didn't like the money I was offered back in June. I don't particularly love training camp. So I'm going to wait until somebody gets hurt during the season and sign. And there are guys like that on the street. Number two, practice squads. Every guy in the league that's on a practice squad is technically a free agent. You can poach a practice squad player anywhere. So you've got a stack of practice squad players by position that you think they're also on your ready list. And then finally, you're always kind of prior to the trading deadline, you're always out there trying to find teams that have a surplus at a position of need for you and to see if there's something available. And I guarantee you Howie just flat out exhaust those things all day, every day.
Mike Mayock with us. So, Mike, looking ahead to Sunday, the Super Bowl rematch against the Chiefs. Chiefs lose their first game against the Chargers. It's sort of hard, at least right now, to decipher between the Chiefs as like the legend of the Chiefs and what we're watching right now. From a talent standpoint, where do you think the Chiefs are? And is that, seeing what Justin Herbert did to them in the past game, is that something you think the Eagles can replicate on Sunday?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, the left side of their offensive line is different. It's Josh Simmons and Kingsley Sumataya, a first-round pick and a second-round pick, instead of Joe Thuney and Caliendo. Athletically, very much upgrades, the two guys this year. Now, it's going to take a little time for them to get together, so it's kind of a good time to get them right now. Also, at the wideout position, Rashee Rice, 6-game suspension. Xavier Worthy, questionable for this week. They're their two best wideouts. So, again, the Eagles are kind of getting them at a good time offensively. They don't have to play their best wide out, and even if Worthy plays, it might be in a shoulder harness. So they're getting these guys at a pretty good time. Offensively, their run game is not dynamic at all. They don't have a running back that can take it to the house. The pass game has been severely hurt because of what I just talked about. The O-line's a work in progress, and really – it's all about their quarterback standing on his head to beat you. And that's what they're struggling in the red zone. On defense, they were very stout against the run. I mentioned earlier they couldn't get a consistent pass rush unless they brought linebackers. That's why their sacks were Drew Tranquil had 2 sacks, a linebacker. They didn't force any turnover. So, I'm a big believer in Spagnuolo, the defense coordinator. He'll put something together to challenge this Eagles team, but I would think the Eagles ought to in their mind think we can come out and throw the ball against this team, and we can do it early and often. You think
the Eagles win this game on Sunday?
It's a hard ask going in there. I've gone in there too many times to say it's going to be easy, but I think the Eagles have more talent, and I think they're going to show a big improvement from week 1 to 2, and I do think they'll win a game. All right.
Thank you as always, Mike. Dude, to have a guy's like, you know what I did before this call? I grinded 5 hours of that game. The game that only lasted 3, and I assume you didn't watch the
commercials and halftime
and the delay. So
yes.
You're the man. So thank you so much, Mike. We appreciate it. We look forward to talking to you next week.
Appreciate it,
Thanks.
Mike.
Yep.
There he is, Mike Mayock. You can listen to the Believe in Eagles podcast
Guy's a
with
tape
Mike
grinder.
and Lee. Dude,
Tape grinder.
I love it.